we have to shout out our one and only fan, Pearl, because what we went and saw was the third film in the. I don't know. Do we call it the? I'm calling it the Pearl trilogy.
I think it's called the X Saga on Wikipedia.
The
The
X
Ty West
Saga.
films. Yeah.
Yeah, made by Ty West. This was Maxine. All right, I'm going to start talking about Maxine. So yes, Maxine. It is the third film in the trilogy, the X Saga. Started with X in 2021, followed up later that year with Pearl, and now we have, was it 2022?
Yeah.
2022. Followed up later that year with Pearl, and now we have Maxine. And X told the story of this group of people filming a porno on this random farm with these creepy old people and the bloodbath that ensued. Pearl was a prequel and went back and told the story of the old woman on the farm, who was Pearl. And now we have Maxine, which is jumping back ahead and is really a sequel to X. Maxine was the one lone survivor of the massacre from X, and now she is trying to create a life for herself and become a star, become a celebrity in Hollywood. She gets her first big movie that's not a porno booked, and then all of a sudden, skeletons from her closet start popping up. Someone starts blackmailing her about the events that happened during X. And mysteriously, a bunch of people around her start dying as there is a serial killer on the loose, the Night Stalker. This movie takes place in the mid 80s, and it makes sure this takes place in the mid 80s because it feels like an erotic 80s thriller horror. It plays the part well. Like when you've got a setting like this that can play a role, but not necessarily be a distraction. Like I think the setting was a character, but it didn't overdo it too much. It just kind of felt like it was made in the 80s, which is exactly what you want out of something like this. Ty West is a genius. Like, to come up with this idea, to string these movies together, this is definitely his most approachable of the three, where X was this super indie slasher. Pearl was this throwback, just chaotic thing. Maxine is probably the most to the masses of any of the three movies. It has a star-studded cast as you get. Let's see here. Who all pops up in this? You've got probably the second lead is played by Elizabeth Debicki. You have Giancarlo Esposito as her agent. Halsey is in this, and of course, as was already mentioned, Kevin Bacon. Who, if you ever wanted to know what Kevin Bacon would look like if he played Benoit Blanc, just watch Maxine and you would know. Because that's basically what he's doing. He's a private eye. He sounds like Daniel Craig in Knives Out and Glass Onion. This is him doing that. He's having a blast doing whatever he's doing too. It's great. I love this movie. This is I'm going high 3-star. I consider making it a 3.5. I think it's my favorite of the three, just because it's the most popcorny, right? It is the most approachable. Your characters are all kind of fully formed at this point. Maxine is a great character. Mia Goth is brilliant once again. Like, she's awesome. And shout out to 8 Million Ways to Die, because there's a scene that takes place on the exact same like tram up to the mansion that our Come to the Stable movie did. So I saw that. I'm like, where is Jeff Bridges when you need him? Oh, Michelle Monaghan and Bobby Cannavale. You can't forget about them too. They're in this. Shout out to another Bobby Cannavale movie in 2024. But yeah, high 3-star. It might be 3.5. We'll see how it ends up going. But this movie's just a blast. It's so much fun to follow what's going on with Maxine. And I hope it's not the last one, because he's created quite the world with this trilogy. Adam, why don't you go next? What do you think?
All right. Well, Maxine is, again, hopefully, and it's wishful thinking this early, we're several months out, but could this be the third film in this franchise also getting Pinot nominated? X got Pinot nominated for Stickman. We got Mia Goth getting like the trifecta of nominations for herself for Pearl. And again, it'd be cool to see her get some love for Maxine. I think the front runner here is Kevin Bacon for possibly a Cager performance, because he reminded me so much of Nicolas Cage in this movie, and just Bacon just chewing up the scenery. Like he is this every time he's on, he's doing something pretty incredible. Like he's awesome with his gold-plated teeth and his crazy accent and his slang with his accent there is just awesome. He's awesome in this movie. But Mia Goth is definitely born to play this role. Her opening shot, her audition is awesome. Elizabeth Debicki also just really chewing up a lot of the scenes here as well. Great little video store rental place too. I kind of wanted to go in there and rent a movie. I love video rental places, so kind of awesome to kind of pay homage to 1985 here, 1980s video rental places. So it's just cool. This is definitely like a jump forward. I think it jumps forward 6 years from X here as well. And there's a kind of the different transitions from the movie, even though they're totally different, the same kind of continued story what Ty West is doing with the kind of the Texas Chainsaw-esque like horror film with like the low indie film with X, and then you have this kind of like character study horror film with Pearl, and now we're kind of jumping into a noir kind of horror as well with Maxine. It had some similarities to like I picked up some of like that like Chinatown in there with how like the world builds and kind of plays and feels grimy there. And then also kind of this other movie from 2019, which is not nearly as good, but I picked up a lot of that stuff called We Summon the Darkness, which is directed by Mark Myers, starring Johnny Knoxville and Alexander Daddario. But essentially, the big comparison with these two movies I really picked up on was that they said in Maxine that a lot of our movies and our TV shows have sadistic stuff that getting into our youth, and that's why we're blaming stuff. But what we saw in the darkness was about music, and both had the ending finales turn out to be priests at the very end of them as well. So very similar stories there, which We Summon the Darkness is really fun if you want to see a kind of a crazy Johnny Knoxville movie. That's something to watch. But Maxine is a really fun time. I'm almost at 3.5 stars. I kind of came home and was a little disappointed, honestly, because Expectations, this was one of my favorite, like most anticipated movies of this upcoming year, because I loved X, and I think X at certain days is actually better than Pearl because I like the horror elements. But overall, I think Maxine, I am at a high 3 stars currently. I think another rewatch here, I could push it up there. I really enjoy the franchise, and I want to see another one here. I just think those expectations of having 2 amazing movies and then followed up with one, I'm like, oh, it wasn't exactly what I was thinking it was going to be. But at the same time, it's not a bad thing, because I feel like the world that he did was really interesting, and kind of exploring that 1985 kind of Quentin Tarantino-esque with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but making it kind of his own horror film in there as well. I thought that was pretty interesting. So,
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 80s edition. I like it.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Todd, where are you at?
Well, I remember when Before Midnight came out, Richard Linklater said that he was happy that he doesn't think he'll ever be rivaled to be the lowest grossing trilogy of all time. I mean, this is kind of close. Like, these movies don't make any money for some reason, but
yeah,
I thought about that while I was in theater. I was like, there are 2 people here, and this is the opening weekend. That sucks. But anyway, these are like the most artistic slashers I've seen like in a while. It kind of feels like a Robert Rodriguez movie more than like a true slasher. Yeah. Like it has the needle drops and the overall like aura that really takes you back to the place, but it has the fake grainy film stock look that makes it look like a grindhouse movie. And the problem is with this movie is it doesn't really have the energy that the other 2 movies have. Like the backdrop kind of creates a low ceiling. Like it plays like a season of American Horror Story, which isn't necessarily that bad, but it definitely is not what you want when you have 2 years of buildup to like this big bloody conclusion to a saga. Because I think the story is kind of lazily written. Like it's too reliant on how much the audience is in touch with the trilogy and how much you actually care about the Night Stalker thing in Hollywood. I think Kevin Bacon, I wrote down that he is he's playing the Michael Shannon role, because I like in any other circumstance it'd be played by Michael Shannon, but the movie's simplistic, and I don't think it's as engaging as it strives to be. Like the overall tone is a bit of a betrayal to expectations as well, because it's like this completely sexless and goreless horror movie about a porn actress with triple X in the title. And it's really just like a B movie serial killer flick. And so I honestly kind of think these movies are diminishing returns. I think X was like really good. And then Pearl was like ambitious, but still admirable. And this one, I'm just kind of like, I'm at like a low 2.5 stars.
Mhm.
I mean, there were times when I was digging it. There were times when I really wasn't digging it, and I was just like, okay, I'm kind of over this, but I still sort of respect the trilogy of movies.
Was I the only one that stayed till the end of the credits and like then got up and went, I guess there's not a fourth one?
I had looked up whether there was something at the end of the
Okay.
credits.
Yeah, I
Because
usually do that
that's the
now.
only time no one knew that there was a third one until like they went and saw Pearl, and then Maxine popped up at the end. So yeah, I get
Well,
I
that
get
was
what
the
you're
same
saying.
thing with the first one when it was like the Pearl trailer came up, and that was even more shocking because I didn't even know that it was planned that there was going to be another movie at all, or that it was even planning a universe of movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying, that it feels like it you could say it's kind of diminishing returns. It's not necessarily going off of the same idea of what it was billed as. That's an interesting point, that triple X in the title, and then it's a sexless movie. That I mean, you're right. That's not necessarily the focus of it, especially if you're going for an '80s movie. I mean, '80s, there was so much of just sexuality that popped out. I mean, it talks about that, right? That's one of the main talking points of the movie is the sex and sin on screen,
Yeah.
and this really didn't have it that much, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just so much fun though.
Yeah, it's fun. The one thing too is the one actor that seemed really out of place in the movie for me too was we had a really good Kevin Bacon performance. We had a really good Bobby Cannavale performance, and Michelle Monaghan's kind of just kind of there, not doing anything, like not matching the same energy as them. Which I was like, oh, it's cool to see her, but I was like, you're kind of out of place out of the cops. Because Bobby Cannavale, man, like I go back to the Ezra review and listen to that and just hear what Todd's praise was on that guy, because he is like a really underrated actor. Like he is really awesome in this one too. I'm like he is totally. I would be if Chinatown's, like I mentioned Chinatown, but he could be like kind of like the Jack Nicholson like detective doing that kind of detective thing in this movie. It'd be really cool to see him lead a noir story himself. I don't know. I really enjoyed him in the movie a lot.
I don't know, I thought Michelle Monaghan was fine. She was a straight
She's fine,
person for
exactly.
Bobby Cannavale to chew up the scenery next to, and that's exactly what she needed to be.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be praising Bobby Cannavale as much if you didn't have a Michelle Monaghan for him to play off of. So
You didn't like that either?
see, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I can understand that point, I guess. So.
But yeah, no, I get the critiques. It is a different vibe, a different feel, but I kind of dug it. I thought it was fun.
It's fun. I did score him when she asked that one guy to get naked and then crushed the giblets. I was like,
Oh, yeah, that was a bit much. Her Maxine's best friend, Leon, played by Moses Sumney, totally should have been Gerard Carmichael. That's one of the things I was thinking as I was watching. Like this looks like it should be Gerard Carmichael.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, that would have been good. All right. Well, that's Maxine. I almost said that's Pearl, but it's not Pearl. Pearl's name is mentioned once or twice in the whole movie. But so shout out to Pearl. I'm sure she's listening. 3 stars for me, 3 stars for Adam, 2.5 stars for Todd. It is in theaters. It is not a big blockbuster, big budget, big return.
no
Not everyone's
minions.
going to see it, but go see it while you can. These
worth
movies
watching.
need to be supported. They need to be seen. Make sure you go out there, you watch Maxine, so it can stay in theaters as long as possible, so as many people can see it as much as possible. Speaking of that, make sure that you are subscribing, rating, and reviewing the Almost Sideways podcast, so that as many ears and eyes can find us as possible.
Yeah, because
That
if
would
you
be
feel
lovely.
it, watch it.
Chase it. Yeah, there.
Yeah.
Watch it. Yes, that